Hi everyone. We are going to begin talking about Unit 2, Information and Communications Technology, which now has become the popular term, and we'll also talk a little bit about the Internet. And here are the objectives. You can read through those. We will talk about some items of why we use technology. You can look up a little on the history. I think it's really important to understand how you access the internet, the actual ways that we access and ways to communicate on the internet. Talk a little bit about search engines. You think you know about search engines, but there's things to know and crucial things about what things on the internet would be facts, opinions, and so forth. Today's society using technology, positive and negative impacts, and how will technology affect you? So, computing history. You know, you could have a whole course on history. I just think we need to understand that back in the 60s, they were creating computers, which were large machines with stuff on them, dials and so forth, these large machines. And we would take, punched cards back then, feed them in, and then somewheres they would produce this large paper output with the information on it. I started using a computer in the late 70s. I had to use punch cards to actually do Fortran programs for physics classes in college. And then I also used a terminal. I type on the terminal and it would spit out paper showing me what I was doing. Late 70s, early 80s, we started seeing PCs. They were quite different than PCs now, but we started seeing PCs and their use. Boy, it didn't take long. I had a physics teacher. It was 1975. He showed us this funny looking thing, and he said, "That's a personal computer." And he said, in 10 years, this industry is going to take off. Well, if we jump forward to 85 is when Michael Dell was creating computers, Steve Jobs was doing his work, and Bill Gates, and so forth. That's when all that took off. So he was pretty accurate in what he was saying. The next thing we'll talk about, 4 capabilities. Computers are fast and can work with large amounts of data and do it very accurately. Okay? So I like to break it into these 4 things. First one, speed. They can process things internally extremely fast. They can move things through the system. We have the processor, and here's memory and electronic bus, which you know about already. Moving things through there extremely fast, and you can look up these speeds. Another thing we can do is we can take the bits out of a device, let's say your smartphone, send them through the air to a access point, some type of device that reads that in, put it on a wire, and send it to the internet. This is extremely fast too, measured in bits per second. So we talk about the amount of bits per second, how many bits we can put through. You'll hear the term the pipe. How many bits can we send here per second? Okay? A lot of wired networks, 100 million bits per second. So we send 100 million through their bits per second. And some fiber optics, we get way up with that. You might also think about the download of your internet. Okay? So you might get 15 megabytes, 15 million bits per second. Download in terms of your internet. We're going to compare a lot of those things as we move along. Okay, so we have those two: speed, how fast. Okay, next thing we'll mention is that computers are extremely accurate. They can process, if you have the instructions correct and you enter the data correctly, a computer will process that over and over. We call those algorithms. A lot of times the software and the programs are called algorithms. And those algorithms, once you just develop an algorithm, you can repeat that algorithm over and over and it'll be correct. Computers hold a large quantity of data. Memory and storage capacity now is huge. It's really huge. You got to be careful how I use that term. So we measure that in these particular numbers right here. Interesting thing, most people think a kilo is 1,000. It's not 1,000, it's 1,024. So when you have a kilobyte, you have 1,024 bytes. Reason it's 1,024, if you remember, our numbering system is binary. So everything's with powers of 2 because we use bits. Remember, we use a 1 and a 0. 2 bits, binary, powers of 2. 2 to the 10th is 1024. So when you look on your computer and it says you have so many gigabytes of memory, but it doesn't seem to round to exactly what you think, it's because of these numbers aren't. Like kilo isn't exactly 1,000. So, review. We have speed, that they're accurate. We can do a lot, quantity a lot. Here's terabytes, that's quantity. And the last thing, they've become very reliable. Just think if you hired somebody and they could work very fast, they're very fast, they could do a lot of work, and they were accurate, their work was accurate, and, they didn't make any mistakes. But if they're not reliable, if they miss every third day, or they're always sick, or they're always late, or whatever, all of a sudden all these capabilities are not of value if they're not reliable. Computers nowadays are way more reliable than they've ever been before. And we're starting to maybe overtrust that, because we have computers doing things that if they quit working accurately, we could be in trouble. Computer code, you'll define computer code. That is where we write computer instructions. We write the instructions that tell the computer what to do. And that term is called coding. And we'll have you do some computer coding twice during the year, maybe even a little more. Okay? And that's it.